All right, welcome to the beach. It's time to get beachy.
Just got to get my hair right.
Hashtag Gucci Man voice. Beachy. Hey, we have a really bold BOLD show tonight. So it's time to get bold for Virginia. We have some great folk on tonight. It's going to be interesting. This is the Beach Brothers show. And we're gentlemen who live in the beach, Virginia Beach, Virginia. We love business and politics as it relates to our great state of Virginia. And that's what we talk about, business and politics as it relates to the great state of Virginia. I'm Seko, Varner, the producer of the show, Hip Hop Salute. And my brother on the side, my brother from another mother and pops.
The traveling gun.
Conrad Shesventer. How are you doing, Conrad?
Doing excellent, save for the fact I'm limping because I'm starting a running program. So hopefully I get used to that real quick.
All right. Scram! Okay. That's that too much. Oh, I'll leave that alone. But somebody knows there's a meme going around where you do this, you do bow, and then you go scram, and then you do this. And okay, a little too much. Who do we have on the show tonight?
Well, it's great to have back Mr. Jose. We missed him the past
week. What's going on, everybody?
I'd love to have you back on as well.
Wow. Hold up. That must be an apparition. That must be a mirage. You know, we're in the beach on the sand. That must be a mirage. Good brother Jose Cruz, who is our bilingual business bully. If you're interested in getting on the show, speak to Conrad. If you're interested in having your business highlighted or your product or service highlighted, talk to our bilingual business bully, Jose Cruz. Now, Conrad, who do we have on the show today?
We have on the great Sean Perryman, running for lieutenant governor for the Democratic Party, the nomination of it, and former president of the Fairfax NAACP.
Thanks for having me. I'm on the Beach Brothers twice now. Mama, I made it.
Good old two.
No big things.
Thank you.
Who else do we have on the show with us?
We have on via audio Hispanic Chamber President, Mr. Julian Baena, if I pronounced that last name correctly. Hey, we got some video on too.
Oh yeah, hermano. We got Julian. What's up, Julian? How's things going, brother? Just a smile.
What's up, fellas? How are you tonight?
There you go.
Doing excellent.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's good to have the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in the building. And
thank
who
you.
else? Who else?
We also have the great, talented, and very dynamic Vanjie Williams on, who ran for Congress this year in Virginia.
Wow.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
A woman in the house.
Wanted to provide some balance.
Yeah, it takes 5 men to equal the impact, the power, the ferocity of Vanjie Williams. Give it up for Vanjie Williams.
Oh, thank you.
All right, but tonight we're really kind of focusing on this gentleman's run. He's running for lieutenant governor?
That's right, lieutenant governor.
All right. So Conrad, take us away. We have our lieutenant governor candidate back on the show for a second time. I'm surprised he's running. Wow. I mean, you said you were going to run, and now you're running for real, as they say.
Well, I also want to point out, I think compared to the rest of the field, how young he is. Should be one of the youngest candidate. You're only like a year older than me.
Yeah, I am a young candidate, but I think in this moment we need the voice of young people as well. And but I have a lot of experience to bring to the role. I've been working on policy. I told you all about my experiences working with Congressman Elijah Cummings as counsel on the Oversight Committee, advising all the good Democrats there, and my leadership of the Fairfax NAACP. I think these are the issues and the things we need to touch on in this moment. So I'm happy to try to serve.
First theme of our discussion tonight with the field itself. We have, I think, I think, more people who are running as Democrat versus Republican. But I'll lead off with the Democrat side. We have Delegate Hala Ayala, Paul Goldman, who's the former chairman of the Democrat Party of Virginia, Elizabeth Guzman, who we've had on the show, state delegate, Sam Razul, state delegate as well, Xavier Warren, who I think is a sports agent, if Wikipedia has that correctly. He's also running on the Dem side. Flip it to the Republican side, we have, I believe, Puneet Ahluwalia, a businessman, Lance Allen, a veteran and a businessman, Glenn Davis of Virginia Beach, a state delegate who ran for lieutenant governor in a primary but dropped out in 2017, and Tim Hugo, former state delegate too. So the first theme would be comparing yourself versus the entirety of the field. What makes you the boldest and the best?
Yeah. And I think we're lucky we have a lot of good people running, but I think when I look at this moment, I'm not your traditional politicians we talked about. We talked about my age and we talked about some of my experiences. And I'm not really about the politics of personal ambition. I'm not looking for a promotion. I don't think this is a stepping stone. I think we're in a moment where we're facing a pandemic that's hit Black and Latino people especially hard. It's hit the working class, no matter what race you are, especially hard. And in this moment, we need someone who's going to take that position and do the most with it. What I'm hoping to do with this position is utilize it as one of 3 statewide officials and say, these are the policies that we need to be pursuing. I look at it almost, you could call it a chief visionary officer of the Commonwealth. Where should we be going? I'm going to be talking about issues like the worker protections we need during the coronavirus. I'm going to talk about repealing right to work so that we can empower the working class to fight for themselves. I'm going to talk about legalizing cannabis so that we can start talking about the racial equity issues that have been on this failed war on drugs. So these are all the issues that I'm highlighting and many more. But when I look at what we're about, some of the candidates are talking about what they want to do in the future. Some of the candidates are talking about being a nice guy to rural voters. I'm looking at it as tackling the issues head on and speaking honestly and truthfully as an honest broker to the public in this position.
Okay.
I don't know if I can't hear you. You might be muted.
Yeah, Conrad, you're muted, brother.
Yeah, I'm muted. I do think you are quite bold so far based on what we've seen. And I've studied up today by watching a lot of previous YouTube videos of yourself. Definitely very bold. I haven't much gotten to see a lot of the other delegates who are running. So can't necessarily say that they're not necessarily bold yet, because a lot of them are very progressive themselves. But I like the aspect that you would try to use the role itself beyond what it has been used so far, which wouldn't be necessarily to take away from current Lieutenant Governor Fairfax. You want to be constantly on the ground, doing the grunt work as a lieutenant governor, I would take it.
I would hope so. I mean, of course, it depends on who the governor is and how willing they are to share the work with me. But regardless of what work or portfolio I have formally, I am going to definitely be someone who's outspoken and vocal on the issues that I find important. I think this is a time for boldness. You know, this is not politics as usual. When you're wearing masks and sanitizing your groceries, you can't rely on the same old saying. And we've talked about getting past Donald Trump and Trumpism. That's not going away. Donald Trump was a symptom. And what we need to deal with, and I think we have the opportunity to deal with here in Virginia, is where are we going as a nation? Where do we set the course? And that's what I'm hoping to do with this campaign by bringing out some of these issues and strongly championing them. So this is what I hope. Like I said, I have nothing against anyone who's running. I just look at it as we're able to speak to these issues a little bit more uniquely. And also, I know how to take a role that's maybe not inherently powerful and use it and capitalize on it to get real change done.
Hey, Sean, this is Vanjie, the only woman on the panel. Like, I introduce myself. Well, I have a question for you. So I like your platform. I think it's progressive, okay? But as a former candidate, one question that I find really important for my community, when I say my community, I mean normal, everyday people who are not looking at politics as usual. What are we going to do about the rural communities and the underdevelopment of rural communities in Virginia, especially when it comes to COVID? COVID-19 testing is very hard to come across because we don't have hospitals in the rural communities to actually get the testing or to help someone. So where do you see yourself in the mix of rural communities, COVID-19, and pulling us along with the more urban and suburban areas?
Yeah, and obviously, I'm Fairfax. I'm from Fairfax. That's the people are going to look at me as a Fairfax candidate. But when I tell people, they ask me, "What are you going to do for rural voters?" I say most of my campaign is probably geared towards rural voters, right? Because I'm talking about broadband access a lot. And why do you talk about broadband access? Oh, it's just internet. No, it is a health issue, right? Especially in rural Virginia where hospitals are being shut down. If you don't have telemedicine, a lot of times you don't have healthcare. So we
Yes.
need to start talking about the issues that are impacting rural voters. And the broadband access, that's an education issue, an equity issue, an economics issue. So that is one of the hallmarks of my campaign. I told the Beach Brothers, I work in tech policy. I was actually appointed by Chairman Pai to an FCC advisory committee. So I study these issues a lot. And this is going to be a huge, huge issue for us going forward. And so I want to champion that for rural communities. But even when we talk about things like criminal justice reform and everything, that impacts rural voters. I've talked to a lot of people, unfortunately, virtually, but I'm going to get down there. But when I talk to them, they talk about the impact that the war on drugs has had and addiction in those communities. And so I think these are messages that cut across whether you're rural or urban, and that we need to speak to and elevate. And the broadband issue, if we really invest in broadband, if we really invest in legalization, these are job creators for everyone. So these are some of the ideas I have for rural voters. But I'm also talking about the need for STEM boot camps. We always are bragging about all the tech companies we bring in. They should be putting those boot camps in rural communities with the investment into broadband, investment into the people there. So these are some of the things that I think are bread and butter issues, but they're often spoken about in siloed, like, oh, this is just a Black issue, or this is just a rural issue. It's an issue that affects everyone. And so that's what I'm hoping to do with this campaign, is get that message out there.
I watched how you had an interview a couple months back with John Fredericks, who is himself is based in Chesapeake, but he represents more of the Republican conservative bend. I like the fact that you went on the show, but then he asked, how exactly would you and progressive ideals oppose to in areas that are outside of Northern Virginia and Fairfax? How would you come down to Hampton Roads? How would you go to the Southwestern Virginia, which is like a whole different type of rural area compared to even Vanjie's version of rural Virginia, because there's so much about Virginia that's distinct. But you just highlighted the aspect of, say, bringing broadband as much to in the entire state as possible. That could be something that just highlights support for both parties, the entirety of the state. So yeah, I think that's a good thing.
And I don't think, and again, I don't look at these issues as, we're really in a nation right now where we're polarized, right? Everything is under ideology. But when I talk about legalization, obviously I hit on the criminal justice and the racial justice aspects of it. But this is something where if you're a Republican and you're talking about something that creates a new industry, expands the economic pie, why shouldn't that be bipartisan? And we see so many places, this is hugely popular. It's winning on, in state referendums. It's being done bipartisanly. So if we can do it and do it in the right way, we really have a chance to lift up all sorts of people and get past some of these partisan politics where everyone's just sort of looking for the next thing to argue about.
Well, I find that really, really, really enlightening. And I see politics in a whole new light since running myself. And one of the things that I still talk to people about, and I have to emphasize again rural areas, because I'll give you a great example. Back about 2 years ago, during one of the Central Committee meetings, Democratic Central Committee meetings, the more populated areas felt that rural areas should tamper down, be quiet, and pretty much accept what's being handed down from the more populated areas. And one of the things that it was disheartening is that it is the rural areas that bear the grunt of the labor force that can't get out. We have no transportation. We have no economic opportunities. We have no educational opportunities. Yes, we do have Rappahannock College, we do have Germanna, we do have the other community colleges, but if you don't have a car, you can't get to your educational sources. If you don't have a car, you can't get to doctors. And with, like you said, without broadband and what have you, it's like being in your own little bubble. And I can tell you, even right now, I still have people calling me and they're asking, how do I get in contact with the governor? Because we feel like the conversation is not including us when it comes to COVID restrictions, when it comes
Right.
to transportation projects. You know, it's like the person is asking, how will it be paid for? Well, guess what? It's supposed to be a balance within the state that, yes, the more populated areas pay for the less populated areas, because we pay taxes too. Don't get it twisted. When it comes to Virginia state taxes, we pay equal amount to Northern Virginia. But when it comes to county taxes, I gotta admit, I love it. But how do we bring the rural areas into that populace where we can raise up, where we can get hospitals built, we can get new skills? I know a lot of people say that it's really important about the statues, about the monuments, and about the flags, but in real life, it's about the children who just can't. It's a shame that most children leave the rural areas and they don't come back, because they know if they come back, they're never going to leave. We want our kids to go away and bring that knowledge back so we can be up there like Fairfax County. So how do you see that coming about and it growing with Richmond in the next 2 years?
Right. I think so. When I look at this issue, and I don't want to harp on the same one with broadband or whatever, but it enables someone to stay in their community and then have the access to the outside world and have jobs that may not be based right here, but they have access to remote, because much of the knowledge economy is remote now, right? And it's still working. And those are some of the higher paying jobs. So you really can't talk about that without talking about the broadband issue. But then I also look at, if we were to invest in that, we are creating jobs by just doing the infrastructure project of having broadband, right? So these are all things that are going to hit at home for those rural communities and make it easier for them to, like you're saying, grow up there, stay there, and live there. When I talk about legalization, and this is all in black and white, I don't say one thing to one group and another thing to another. I say that we take that money and invest it in early childhood education. We put it into those sort of things, because what's coming out of Richmond now are unfunded mandates, right? They're saying do this, but they're not giving you any money to pay for it. You have the Dillon rule and also these localities that have no taxing authority. So we're saying to them, do these great things, but good luck in finding the dollars to do it. So I'm talking about ways that we can create jobs, bring money in, and then build on the future that we want to see. So I see the question of how will it be paid for? I think the way we do is expanding the economic pie, creating these new industries. Because so this week, Governor Northam came out in favor of legalization. There was a report done in the General Assembly that said this is going to be $500 million in revenue in the next 2 years. Now, I don't want to get too far down the revenue road, because when we talk about legalization, we have to make sure we're talking about expungements and doing it in a way that's racially equitable. But that money, that's an underestimation, because you're going to have the tourism, you're going to have the industries that prop up that marijuana industry. It's going to be a lot of different things that bring money in. So we have to start thinking about all the money we're leaving on the table because we're pursuing a failed war on drugs. If you look at the arrest rate here for Black people, mostly Black people, for marijuana charges, it's appalling, because we're throwing those people out of our system. We're throwing them out of our economy, and off that their kids, we're throwing them out of the education system. So we have to stop throwing these people away for something that doesn't make sense. Most people you speak to would say, I don't believe someone should serve a day in prison for smoking marijuana. So this is what I'm talking about here. And it's not some pie in the sky thing. We can see the states and what they've been able to do and fund with money from creating that industry. We can see the states. If we go to Tennessee, there is publicly funded broadband access, and it's the fastest internet in the country. I believe that's in Chattanooga. And this is what we're talking about. These are things that are feasible and you can see them. It's not pie in the sky. It's realistic. And we just need to have the public policy to do it.
Now, I think we also have to remember that Chattanooga was able to do that municipally. Virginia Beach would not be able to do that with that Richmond policy because, as you mentioned, we're Dillon rule. So Lieutenant Governor Sean Perryman could help out by taking away a little bit of that Dillon rule.
I want to ask a question. Madison Downs asked the question, how will it be paid for? You answered that question. Conrad, what is Madison running for?
Well, Madison earlier this year ran for District 3 Congress in Virginia. Would have been running against Bobby Scott if he had won the primary. I would say he's more of a conservative-leaning individual, so it's good to have his opinion brought forth to the show.
Yeah, he's part of the radical Republicans. So, Madison, keep asking the questions. I think it's important to have questions coming from a lot of different portions. So, Julian, look, you're representing the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of the Coastal Virginia? Hey, you say it, bro. I'm going to mess it up. All right, but look, bro, what are some of the questions that you would have for a person who's running for lieutenant governor?
So, it's really interesting. For the past couple of years since I got involved with the chamber, we always hear the diversity, equity, inclusion, leveling the playing field. And for us, it's always great. That sounds great. But what programs, what actions are you actually taking to make sure that that is something that happens and that we are truly moving towards having a more equitable and diverse community and involvement in a lot of things, right? Whether it's in business, in politics, whatever it may be. What are some of the things that in your mind come to the front of it that says, hey, you know what, this is how I want to be more inclusive. This is how we can be more diverse.
Right. That's a great question. And it's something I think about, especially in light of what we went through in the last year, right? Like when we had the pandemic up here in Northern Virginia, I was working with the neighborhood health. I was part of the NAACP working with neighborhood health. And the positivity rate at that clinic, which was mostly Latino, was 50%. 50% where people were positive. And some of them, they were saying that the instructions for COVID weren't done in Spanish. It was simple as that. They just didn't even put it out there, right? So I think we need to think about, and I always say this because I do diversity work in my day job in the Internet Association. I say, I cannot advocate. I think I'm a good advocate, but I can't advocate for people better than they can advocate for themselves, right? You have to empower them. And I think we do that through commissions and making sure that people have a voice at the table. I think we also do the outreach. What I've heard time and time again during this pandemic is that the state government wasn't coming down to the localities. They weren't going to the Hispanic chambers. They weren't going to the NAACP chapters and saying, what do you need? And so what I'm hoping to do is be a statewide leader that goes out and says, what do you need? And brings you in to tell me what you need, because I'm not going to know what you need better than you do, right? So I think that's how we start. We have these with these coalitions that are really coalitions of people who can have a voice in their community, not just people who have donated to a campaign. And that's what I would push for as lieutenant governor. Obviously, it's not the most powerful position in the world, but it is something where I feel that if you are honest and you speak to people, you can advocate for their positions.
That's a good point. So I'll throw a couple things out there at you that we've kind of seen and I've experienced over the past couple of years with my involvement here in Hampton Roads and coastal Virginia, in that region, right? One of the big things we've pushed for is simple changes, right? A Spanish plugin on websites. I have so many Hispanic people that come said, hey, I'm interested in starting a business.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I don't know where to go, where to start. And I say, well, go to the virginiabeach.gov website, go to norfolk.gov or, whatever city you live in, and we can start there. Then they say, I can't read that because it's not in English. A plugin is so simple. It's fiscally inexpensive. I'm talking about 20 cents a month, $2 a year, whatever the cost may be, but it's little that now affords the opportunity for somebody that doesn't know kind of the ability to read and digest that information in their native language, right? Number two is, this whole pandemic, unprecedented across the board, right? For everybody. what we saw is that out of that entire giant stimulus package for business owners, 8 to 10% of Hispanic business owners were the one, and I think it's closer to 8, were the ones that actually got a piece of that PPP and EIDL program. And a lot of that was because of that. For, hey, we don't know. They weren't structured right? That's on them, but that also falls on us in educating, making sure that they understand that. So to me, it's kind of like, all right, there's all these things. So what can we do to better leverage and to better gain better access to the governor, lieutenant governor, to the congressman, congresswoman, the delegates that say, hey, here we are, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And yet to this day, I'm not going to put people on the spot, but out of 7 cities in Hampton Roads, maybe one of them has reached out and said, hey, we need your help. How do we include you? We want to make sure that you guys are getting the resources that you need, and, conversely on the backside of that is we try to reach out to, governors, senators, congressmen, and it's trying to get through the gatekeeper sometimes becomes a difficult task.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. Like I said, I used to lead an NAACP chapter, and I'm like, hey, we're the largest NAACP chapter in the state. We haven't heard from you. You know what I mean? So it's like, why are you not reaching out? And this is why I'm running, because I'm saying, who is speaking for us on the ground? Who's speaking for the people on the ground? And what we saw this year was the biggest failure of government that we could imagine. And I don't mean here in Virginia necessarily. I mean like government that's in federal government. The LA Lakers got a CARES Act loan. Like that alone tells you everything you need to know. People on the ground weren't being served. And what we did, we worked with the Virginia 30-Day Fund. We were able to save 30 minority-owned businesses in Northern Virginia just purely by reaching out to them, meeting them where they are. We had an application where it was like, just give us a paragraph on who you are and show us that you're an actual business and we'll be able to help you. So I think what you need is that mindset of service, right? Like not the people who are getting at the job and saying, okay, what's the next step for me? So I think in this moment, we do need people who are coming from the outside and putting these things at the forefront. If you go to Perryman for Virginia, you can get that in any language that you choose. It also is available on mobile that way. And I've also made it friendly for people with disabilities because I want to be inclusive and meet people where they are and make sure that we're taking it into account. So I'm not sure what the answer is for that, other than it has to be, we have to have a mindset of our leaders that we need people at the table, not the same old traditional, Bob is my buddy from down the block, or this is the person who donated to my campaign, but that we are meeting people where they are and we're here to serve them.
Awesome. Now I have a question. Values are more important than party alone. And you speak for a section of our community that knew they hated Trump's ideas in 2016, but struggled to find the right vision with the competition. Many in the Hispanic community do associate with business climate under Republican leadership. So what bold values are needed in 2021 from you?
What bold values are needed from me? I think the bold values is being willing to speak the truth, and that's including even when you don't know the answers or you don't know what the situation is. What I saw for the business community, and like I said, I used to be a corporate lawyer before I became a representative counsel for Congressman Cummings. I used to be a corporate attorney. Businesses can deal with regulation. They don't like to, but they can. What they can't deal with is uncertainty. So what we really needed someone at the beginning to say, hey, this is the situation, you need masks, you need this is the rules, this is what we're gonna do for this period of time. Well, instead we got was maybe this part will be reopened, maybe we'll do something different on Tuesday. You never knew what was coming. And that was because no one wanted to have ownership of what the problem was. And I think if we had people in there who understood businesses need certainty, and they can deal with regulation even if they don't like it, but understanding, hey, this is what needs to be done, and these are the restrictions you have for the moment. At least you can plan around that. So I think that's the sort of boldness we needed. Sorry.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask some viewer questions.
Sure.
Madison Down wanted to say that he actually likes your thoughts. That says a lot.
You'd be
That
surprised.
says a lot.
A lot of Republicans like me after they talk to me.
That reminds me of something Vanjie said. So another Republican or conservative, I'm not sure if he uses the moniker Republican. I know he's conservative. You know, he ran around with a Trump hat, so he was totally MAGA. Brother MAGA Merle Rutledge asked, "Are you for or against the dismissal of felony charges with the Senator Lucas?" All right. Well, you say the question. So what's your answer to that? And I'm going to bring up, interestingly enough, that you said that
There
we
you
should all
go.
be relieved to see these sham charges dismissed and angry that they were brought in the first place.
Yeah, and I stand by that. I thought that was a political charge to begin with. It was so attenuated that if you attended a rally and then someone happened to get hurt with it, let's say you attended a rally or protest or whatever, and someone happened to get hurt at that you would be charged with a felony for, bringing down that statue. I just thought that was way too attenuated, and they were trying to do that to her because of her position in the state Senate. So I'm glad that they dismissed those charges because I didn't think that they should have been brought in the first place.
Okay. And Sister Dixon, you previously spoke about implementing Portland triage model for triage model for VA to mitigate negative police encounters. Would your triage model include police demilitarization of the police and civil asset forfeiture? Okay, she coming with the big words.
Yeah. So she said a mouthful there. So what she's talking about is when you call 911, most places when you call them, an armed police officer comes, right? And you say, "Hey, I'm having a mental crisis. I just need someone to help." An armed police officer comes. So, and what this triage model is, what is your crisis? If it's a mental health issue, we'll send someone with mental health training. So this is a model where we, again, are aiming to reduce police interactions and making sure that people who are actually trained to respond to the crisis are sent to respond to the crisis. So to answer Andrea's question, it would include police demilitarization. I don't think police should be using tear gas on people, on civilians. I also don't think we should be wasting taxpayer money on buying tanks and everything else that some of these police departments have. As far as civil asset forfeiture, I believe in that. In the most case, there's one situation where I did advocate for civil asset forfeiture, and that was in the case of human trafficking. That makes it easier to prosecute those cases when you take the money that those people make for trafficking people. So I guess I would be mostly for civil asset forfeiture, getting rid of it, except in the cases of like human trafficking or some kind of similar crime.
Excellent. I just showed that you had an excellent video that I might play a small clip of it and then get you to respond. It's only 51 seconds.
Go for it.
John Lewis died this year, and he said democracy is not a state, it's an act. You all here acting tonight. You all here are taking a stand tonight. I want you to think about John Lewis going across Edmund Pettus Bridge. You think about the good trouble he got in. You think about the men that were facing him coming the other way. And at some point, someone must have looked over to the person next to him and said, "Hold the line." So I'm asking you, are you going to hold the line? When you see injustice in your community, are you going to hold the line? When you see them try to take away your vote, what are you going to do? Hold the line. When you see that they give you anything short of justice, what are you going to do? Hold the line.
Wow. Hold the line. Interesting. Now, well, you got a chance to see one of our great sponsors, Guidance Whiskey. We'll talk about them in just a moment. But hold the line. That's interesting. Is that your new rallying cry?
No, I wish I could take credit for that. It was the cry. It was the rally. It was named "Hold the Line." It was organized to count every vote. That make sure that we count every person's vote. I was in there speaking in my NAACP capacity because it's absolutely critical that we do count everyone's vote. I'm also a big voter rights proponent. But yes, that "Hold the Line" is not my rallying cry. It was a rallying cry of making sure that we stood up and made sure that every vote was counted.
Okay. And I also see that you're you said that Trayvon Martin. I want to go back to that. No,
Sure.
You talked about Tamir Rice. You talked about Tamir Rice. I placed it up there earlier. Why was
Sure.
this so important in 2020, in November 22nd, 2020? After the election, everyone after the election has really kind of ramped down the concern for reducing police deadly encounters. But you felt it necessary rather to talk about it at this time. Why?
So I posted this because I believe Tamir Rice would have been 18 on this day. This was going to be his birthday.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to draw attention to it that just because people have stopped marching and the election has passed, the issues we're facing are still out there. There are still young Black boys being gunned down by poorly trained police officers. And by the way, that police officer was had numerous citations in his record and then was going on to get other jobs. So these issues are still front and center. But it also, in that same week, we saw Kyle Rittenhouse freed on bail. So I was just talking about the hypocrisy of it all. Yeah. And so that's why I wanted to draw attention to that.
Well, what's interesting is this kind of brings up the fact that this police officer, and I'm going to let Conrad come on in just a second, was
Sure.
able to obtain employment with another police department.
Yeah.
It goes to what Neely Furler says, that white supremacy does not get fired; they get promoted or shifted.
No.
Do you think that as a lieutenant governor, you could influence the current practice in Virginia of immunity, qualified immunity?
I hope so, and I believe I can. Even in my role with NAACP, there was one vote in the House of Delegates on qualified immunity that failed, and I spent that entire weekend after that advocating to state legislators to change their vote, and they did. So I think that we can be influential in raising this issue. And when I talk about qualified immunity, I know some people are back the blue and that sort of thing. I'm talking about transparency and accountability. If you go to a clerk's office, you expect them to be held accountable for what they do or don't do as part of their job. I think we should expect the same of police officers. And I think that most people would agree with that, but it's been such a heated, polarized issue that they can't see that what we're talking about is transparency and accountability.
Well, I do have one sort of long-lasting question to sort of wrap up, unless Ms. Vanjie wanted to get in another word or comment. I would love to give her another shot.
You want to go first and then I follow up, or you want me to go first and you follow up?
If you'd like to, but mine is sort of like 2 paragraphs long, and he's got till about 8. So just
ladies first,
squeeze yours in.
2 paragraphs.
Yeah.
Okay, I love what you said about, I know of students who have gotten like trumped up charges, and in some cases, their charges were justified. And I'm going to go back to the Louise Lucas discussion. So, what I'm finding disheartening is that people have made it a political fight, like you said. But this is a really sad moment in Virginia history when not one single, but a person is held accountable for the action of the whole crowd. That's saying that if in the future, if you or I were at an event and something happened, that we can be held, charged
Exactly.
with felony. And I found that to be the strangest of all things that I have encountered. And Miss Louise is one of my mentors. So actually having to stand down and watch all this play out, and I was really heartbroken that politics came into play. Where do you see the state of Virginia making sure that politics doesn't have a role in something like this again? Because, in this day and age, everybody protests. And I don't like the red versus blue argument, because we're all supposed to be Americans fighting for the American way. How do you see Virginia setting the precedence? Because I'm going to remind you that Virginia really is the first state, because Jamestown is here in Virginia. Let's make this clear, America. I know Delaware is the first state. We are officially the first. How do we set How do we
Bam!
set a role
VA1.
to, how do we set this up so that this doesn't happen again and we show precedence across the nation to protect not only legislators, but people who are candidates and what have you? Because that was a sad moment in our state's history right there.
And Conrad, don't get nervous. I'm going to stay for your question too. But I would say you're absolutely right. I think whether you're Republican, Democrat, conservative, progressive, whatever, that's obviously what was being done there is trying to intimidate people from exercising their free speech. Because if you're having a rally as a Republican or a conservative and someone else does something and then you get charged, like that's just crazy. We can't allow that. We can't allow that to happen unless you're inciting them to do that. That would be something different. But I think we've already made inroads towards a correction, right? Because obviously the charges were dropped and that chief is fired, as they probably should have been. The chief of police was obviously fired from there. So I think going forward, we have to keep guard of this. This is the only thing we can do. I think in this situation, the process played out where what happened was supposed to happen. The charges were dropped. But I think you're always going to see these sort of political prosecutions when people try to abuse their power. And we just have to make sure that we have a check against that. And that's the only thing you can do, sadly. And what I would say to you, just to what you said about Virginia being the first state, I agree with you in a lot of ways. Virginia is kind of the breadbasket of our democracy. This is where everything started. If you learn about Bacon's Rebellion, this is where our concept of race started, right here. The whole black and white issue that we're fighting over in 2021, it started here in Virginia. And we didn't have that concept of that before this, right? Not in the same way. So I think when I look at this election, and maybe I'm, too highfalutin and head in the skies, but I look at this as we're going to set the path for where we go forward from here. We're coming out of an unprecedented time with the history of racial reckoning, the pandemic, and we can set the stage of what do we do next? Where are we going as a country? Just because we have one of the first elections back after this presidential election.
For liberty and justice for all.
That's right.
Keyword in that is for all. Now, to sort of wrap it up, I'm going to try. I took out some sentences from this. But, bold isn't only spoken of by yourself. Republicans talk bold game too. And I'll quote Virginia Beach delegate Glenn Davis, who's also running for a lieutenant governor. Virginia needs a bold leader who will fight back against the progressive agenda that is trying to take away our rights. The first step of that is nominating a candidate who will win in November. I've never lost a race to a Democrat, and that record won't be broken in 2021. And then I carry that back around to comparing the two parties as boldness. Virginia ushered in Democrats in 2017 and 19. It got more progressive, yet somehow we made marijuana decriminalized only in 2020. And now Northam wants legalization. Yet legalization was on the table this year, but sort of got pushed aside. Those who glorify the decriminalization as what they can get in 2020 now want legalization. And I even spoke with Scott Serville, state senator, on this. And he told me directly that you can't just legalize marijuana. But on the other hand, you have Delegate Lee Carter outright saying legalize, then use the funds generated on the taxes to pay for reparations. I'm a fan of bold stuff, and you speak a lot of bold stuff, and I think your bold is better.
Mm-hmm. So you're asking what the question is?
No, it's more, I guess, it's more of a comment. But you're comparing the boldness of yourself against the future opponent,
Well, Glenn Davis is funny. I mean, I think that's a funny statement that he hasn't lost to a Democrat. That's because he ran for lieutenant governor and he didn't make it out of the primary. So you could say, I mean, yeah, you can't lose if you don't get in the arena, right? You don't make it that far. So to the statement of being bold, I look at Kirk Cox's video when and obviously he's running for governor, right? And he had a campaign video. It's like an alternate reality. No one has a mask on. Everyone's in crowded bars, that sort of thing. And they asked him, what's the number one issue you want to deal with? And he said, cancel culture. I don't think it's bold to be a curmudgeon, or I don't think it's bold to take on social issues that you can't legislate away, right? What they're essentially saying is, I'm going to be bold by having no action at all. I'm going to be bold by pretending this moment doesn't exist. Well, here's the reality. There are millions of people unemployed. There are people getting sick every day. We are dealing with real issues that government can either make easier or make harder for people. That being bold in action is not being bold. Being bold is willing to go out and persuade people that doing something differently than what we've done, the way we have done it, is the right thing to do. And what we have had here, even with Democrats, is we've taken a lot of half measures. We're going to decriminalize but not legalize. We're going to, do this and then get a study and then do something else. We need to go the full route, and that is how we save the working class. That is how we bring in more people into our tent, and that's how we empower and lift people up. So when I say I'm being bold, I'm laying out a set of actions that we need to take, and these are things that we have not done in Virginia and that we need to do. So that's how I distinguish my boldness from their boldness. I am doing something active. They are doing nothing, or they want to take on cancel culture. That's not bold.
Interesting. We did have another question. Actually, it was just a comment. Jeffrey said we need to stand up and fight for everyone. And I agree to a degree. And it sounds to me like you're fighting for everyone. And it looks like you have people who are more, conservative like myself, more independent like myself. And you have your fellow Democrats that are kind of in line with the message that you're sending. Is being a former president or current president of a NAACP a pro or a con in today's politics?
I think it's a pro. I think the organization has it's a legacy of civil rights organization. People know what we're about. I think we're highly respected in that way. And the people who may not like the NAACP, I probably wouldn't have been able to convince them anyway, right? That's a pretty radical position to be against in the NAACP generally. But I think it's a pro also because I was the NAACP president. I was the NAACP president in a county that is 9% Black. So I had to reach out to other people and get them to buy into the agenda. So this is why I think I will have such success at the state level, because I'm already used to taking a bold agenda and a message and translating it to people who wouldn't necessarily fall into the demographic that believe in that. So I think that's going to suit me well.
Beautiful. And what are some other things that you're looking at doing that a person who's more conservative might appreciate? Because I know when I walk in, I'm an independent. I tend to be a little more conservative. So when I walk into conservative rooms, what are you doing here? Oh, well, have a seat, have a coffee. Are you really here for us? And that's the kind of experience that I've had. So how do you attract, because look, Virginia Beach is, Conrad, Virginia Beach used to be very red, wouldn't you say?
Used to be very red, but all the municipal races went red this year, but they all got clean swept by Democrats for the presidency, vice presidency, the senator, and the congressperson. So we could sway Virginia Beach just as easily as long as you have the right ideas.
Okay. All right. So Virginia Beach is red. How do you attract red cities like Virginia Beach to your message?
Sure. If it's an elected official, I talk about ending the Dillon rule and giving them more power to govern themselves. I think that is attractive to them. I talk about expanding the pie, not just, they have this idea of Democrats talking about raising taxes and coming after them for various social issues. The issues I'm talking about, whether it's broadband access, legalization, I believe these are broadly popular ideas. And I think that we can all agree to them. Of course, there's going to be issues that you don't agree on. But what I'm hoping to do is with this is to talk to everyone. I've been calling Republican officials, I've been calling Democratic officials, because I'm hoping to see that everyone can see that we can speak together and reach some understanding, even if we don't reach agreement. My mentor, Congressman Cummings, used to say, you don't always can reach common ground, but you should try to reach higher ground. And that's what I'm going to try to do here in this position.
High ground. Okay. Last question, last words. Vanjie, did you wrap up?
I want to say thank you, Sean. It's been an honor asking you questions and getting your very insightful answers. And like Seko says, I have always said I'm an American first. I'm not representing the red or the blue. I'm representing the red, white, and blue. I'm looking forward to watching your race and seeing what I can do to help the pool of candidates out there, because there's a lot of fish in that sea. So good luck, and look forward to talking with you in the future.
Thank you, Banji, and thank you to all you. I really appreciate you having me on your show. It's always a lot of fun.
Thank you very much for coming on again. I can't wait to have you on again in the future.
All right, I'll see you.
All right, and with that, we'll say goodbye to the candidate Sean Perryman. Salute to all the Americans and the Virginians who are watching this show. Vanjie says she's American first. I'm B1. And if you are one, B1. Hey, look, we want to take a moment, and if you will allow us, we're going to take a moment and shout out the great sponsors who've allowed us to be part of today's show. So, Conrad.
I'll lead off with my favorite one, of course. That's Southern Volkswagen in Chesapeake, Virginia, 1248 South Military Highway. Got me a car there that I was able to go to Kroger twice today in because I forgot to get my sodas. But if you want to make sure you have a car that you can go to the supermarket twice in the same day, you need to go to 1248 South Military Highway, Southern Volkswagen. Speak with Cynthia Rawlings and Charlie Roy and get yourself a nice around-the-town car.
I want to let everybody know that I have an empty bottle. And in that empty bottle is, well, the empty bottle is because I enjoyed some Guidance whiskey. So if you're looking for a bold, brash, and smooth at the same time, bold, brash, and smooth, you can look for Guidance whiskey at guidancewhiskey.com. I also want to say thanks to Common Sense for You. So if you go to commonsenseforyou.org, you can find the great products that commonsenseforyou.org has. They have great soaps. I have soaps at home that they've made, and I tell you, these soaps give you the best feeling. And then they have the body cream. I don't use that, but I use their soaps, their scrub cubes, and their tooth powder. So if you're looking for something that's vegan, if you're looking for healthcare products that are really healthy, then definitely check them out. We're going to leave their information in the show notes. I also want to say that I recently began helping people with funding. So if you're a real estate investor, check me out. I can help you with 90% of the acquisition and 100% of the funding for your rehab, fix and flips, or buy and holds. And we have the beautiful Vanjie who's with us. She's American first. Vanjie, what do you have on the horizon?
Well, as many of you all know, I have always been a government contractor, but I'm also a real estate agent and have been for 25 years. So if you're looking to sell or buy a home, give me a call. Or if you go to VanjieWilliams.com, look me up there. We're updating the website, because after running for Congress, you got to do a little bit of updating. But I service majority of Virginia, all of the East Coast, and all the way over to Charlottesville. So come on over. Let me help you out. I'm good at it.
Seko, you're muted again.
I was speechless. Literally speechless. Brother Jose, which is the business you want to shout out before we get off of here tonight?
Well, as always, I'm particular to the Spanish food, so I gotta go ahead and shout out Rincon Tropical again. That's the best Spanish food in all of Virginia Beach. Stop in and see Bambi or Jose, and tell them that Jose and the Beach Brothers sent you. They're right there off of Holland Road on South Plaza Trail. You can't miss them. Rincon Tropical, best Puerto Rican food in Virginia Beach.
All right. All right. Now, I personally like the Rican Chef, but El Rincon Tropical is man, the food is great. All right, so check them both out. Hey, brother Conrad, any last words before we close out?
I'm also so thankful that we got Mr. Jose back on the show, and I'm glad we were able to have this great, massive conversation with having Banji on, Julian on. I like this idea that we can get a good candidate like that and have different sections of Virginia ask them the thing as they go into their race. So I feel really great about this show.
Right. Maybe we should have Merle on as one of the guests so he can come with that super ultra conservative MAGA question.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice.
It's diverse.
Put a good show together.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for watching the Beach Brothers show. We love you, VA.
This show was brought to you by Positive Vibes Incorporated, our consulting services. We do credit fixes. We do tax resolution. We lend private money and debt consolidation. So if you need some of these services, we're waiting here for you. Credit fixes, tax resolutions, private money, and debt consolidation. Make sure you call Positive Vibes Incorporated.